You immediately knocked him down. At that time I thought it was a rumble from the heavens. Jin Clan Patriarch Jin Wigang led a child forward and said, "Protect this child. He is your reason to live." You knelt on the ground and looked up at him. Myung realized my reason for living was none other than the great young master Chin Muryang. You look terribly thin. At that time I didn't know. Myung didn't expect Chin Muryang to be trembling and hiding behind Chin Wigang. That child would turn out to be a damned bastard who would ruin the Chin clan. You bowed low and took the order. "I accept the command, Lord." Time flew by. 15 years later, on a pouring rainy night, the Lord suddenly died. Chin Muryang's habit of mischief grew ever worse. A family that was once among the top 10 great houses of the land crumbled in the blink of an eye. People gradually abandoned the Chin, but Myung stayed by Chin Muryang's side, dedicated as a warrior guard. But even though you devoted yourself to protecting and fulfilling your duty, just then two figures stepped out of the gate. Chin Muryang stabbed you from behind. Myung did not expect the pain to come from the one he served. Chin Muryang is the price of devotion, this sword. He was still the same trembling coward as the day you first met him. Myung collapsed to the ground. You braced the sword down, trying not to fall over. In that moment, Myung realized that indeed objects can be fixed, but people cannot. A few mysterious figures in red cloaks began to surround you. Chin Muryang stood with empty hands, eyes full of fear as he looked at them. They advanced, one of them drew his sword. While you were in terrible pain, fresh blood soaking your chest garment, Myung engraved this name deep into his soul, Chin Muryang. You found the man's actions ridiculous. Do you think sacrificing my life will make them spare you? Do you think clinging to the demonic cult will let the Chin clan you ruined revive? Do you think that's a way to survive? The night's rain fell but could not wash away his sins. Myung understood better than anyone. He was wrong. Thunder from the sky crashed down. A few of them strode through the rain toward them. Lightning ran along a woman, from her eyes to her mouth and along her clothes, as if she was wired with needles. They looked like demons, not human at all. Chin Muryang was terrified at the sight. When one raised his sword high, you thought to yourself, if you want to live, don't drag them into this. He panicked and tried to flee. The pursuer chased after him. A blade struck down, slicing across Chin Muryang's shoulder. You regretted from the start that you should never have served the great young master. Master, are you watching? The great young master isn't worth protecting. Chin Muryang's head has fallen to the ground. The image of Chin Wigang flashed through his mind. Might as well throw away that failed scion. And even the memory of Chin Muryang as a child. Even at this life-or-death moment, Myung was full of regret. He let the sword in his hand drop. Myung's knees sank onto the cold ground. He immersed himself in the heavy rain. The red-cloaked people behind him stepped forward one by one. Myung had abandoned hope of living. There was no one left to blame. He sank into memories that were nothing but regret. Myung remembered the day he was small, rags clinging to a skin and bone boy. I originally had no name. After being picked up by the Chin clan patriarch, I was called Myung. Myung, it means nameless. Back in the present, he had only one wish. With their blades at his throat, Myung longed that if reborn, he would have a name. Countless strokes drove toward Myung as his life slowly reached its end. He really hoped not to be Myung in the next life. Then the nameless one died. A chill spread through him, making Myung feel very cold. He opened his eyes, so that's how cold death feels. There was the sound of water. Walyong was washing Myung's feet. Myung suddenly felt something was off. She carefully lifted his foot and poured water over it. Startled, he accidentally shoved Walyong and she fell. He panicked. What is happening? The pain still seems present. Am I alive? Clearly countless swords had pierced my body. Walyong hurriedly bowed and begged. Yes, it's my fault, young master. I didn't know the water had cooled. Nameless noticed, isn't that Walyong? The girl attendant had served the great young master since childhood, always mistreated by him. Walyong bowed low. Young master, please forgive this girl, I beg you. Myung, what offense, but why do they call me young master? And where is the great young master Chin Muryang now? She was astonished and didn't understand. Yes, young master. Isn't the young master precisely Chin Muryang, the young master? So it turned out you had been reborn into his body. What the? Myung looked down into the foot-washing basin. Seeing Chin Muryang's face, Myung gaped in shock. What on earth is this? Only at night did he calm down and piece everything together. I've checked countless times, this is not a dream. How did I come back to life and travel back 15 years in the great young master's body? Myung remembered earlier that afternoon. He had asked Walyong whether anyone in the family was called Myung. She replied, there's no such name in the genealogy, sir. He guessed that he had become the great young master Chin Muryang, and so Myung had disappeared. Maybe I have a chance to personally protect the Chin clan. I'll figure out how slowly. There's still time, the clan's destruction is 15 years away. Suddenly Myung felt something strange and paused. Why is the great young master's chamber so shabby? The room's size isn't any bigger than a regular disciple's quarters. His eyes accidentally caught the sword. Myung was startled. What is that? Jin Muryang used that very sword to stab him. Myung sank into memories of the heavenly light sword, the famed blade born from a ray of light that tore through darkness. He gripped the sword, an heirloom granted to the Chin clan's great young master. Then this heavenly light sword is mine. Holding it, Myung's heart raced with excitement. When he drew it from its scabbard, the blade was so sharp it reflected his flushed, excited face. He tried to swing. The blade flashed with a cold, keen light. Myung admired it. Indeed, it's nothing like the swords I used before. He began practicing a few basic forms. Myung was captivated by the way of the sword. After a short while of training, he was out of breath and exhausted. Myung's knees buckled. He had completely run out of strength. Myung looked at his still shaking hands. Just this much and his breathing and muscles are already at their limit. Outside, the night was quiet. Inside the room, Myung sat resting. He closed his eyes and quietly regulated the flow of qi in his body. Even if Chin Muryang never trained, swinging the heavenly light sword a few times shouldn't leave him this close to death. Normally, qi is cultivated in the danshan below the navel and circulates through the meridians throughout the body. But what is wrong with this body? Huge streams of qi were trapped in the danshan, unable to flow through the meridians. Moreover, they conflicted with each other, damaging the meridians and the danshan. This is definitely that condition. Rich kids drank the elixir by mistake and suffered spirit disruption from having too much money. The next morning, training calls echoed throughout the mansion. Everyone lined up neatly to practice swordplay in the training yard. A wooden sword slammed hard against Jinho's head. He clutched his head and fell. Hey, during a match, who hit someone that hard? I heard bones crack. I would have hit you just as hard if I'd known. So unsneered, talkative like a bunch of women. Didn't I say I'd beat you with one hand? Loser, cough up the money, or if you're not satisfied, we'll play another round and raise the stakes. Jinho wanted to backtrack. Shut up, this round doesn't count. Seeing someone approaching, both turned to look. It turned out to be Myung training. So felt like the sun was rising in the west. Could it really be the great young master? First time, right? Young master, come train at the martial ground. Jinho confirmed. What's wrong with that bastard? Meanwhile, after swinging just a few basic moves, he already felt tired and pathetic. Even swinging a wooden sword exhausted his body. With a body like this, he can't sustain sword training. Seeing Myung put the sword down, and Jinho commented, giving up already? Good, get lost, there isn't a single person here who likes you. Contrary to their expectations, he started running. Just run first, burning fat is the urgent task. This action left the three of them dumbfounded. Myung was taking heavy, laborious steps. He had run half a lap around the training yard. Jinho only now noticed, looks like he's not planning to stop, huh? So unsneered, not planning to leave, then we'll make him want to. Myung was forcing his heavy legs to run. His breathing grew labored, sweat pouring down his face. Myung realized his condition was far worse than he thought. Right now, Chin Muryang's body was a mess from elixirs he'd taken since childhood. Countless medicines clashed, becoming poison instead of nourishment. Chin Muryang was foolish. If he'd trained diligently, he'd have a body anyone would envy. First, I must return this body to a state that can absorb elixirs. Chin clan martial arts can wait. At that moment, a sword point flew toward him. He instinctively twisted to dodge. The sword stuck deep into the wall. Fragments of plaster fell down. Chin Muryang was astonished. Is that a real sword? So from behind said, my apologies to the great young master. During the match, my sword accidentally slipped from my hand. A few men from the dojo followed him. Their smug faces made it obvious they came to pick a fight. Myung also guessed their intention. These guys spoke with thinly veiled sarcasm. Great young master, this place is more dangerous than you think. If you get injured, it would be a shame, so we advise you to hide in your room like always. He understood what they were implying. So privately despised him, a pig worth nothing. If he hadn't relied on his parents and still dared to show up here, a scare like that would send him scurrying back to his corner. Myung replied bluntly, sorry about that. Thanks for your concern, I'll be careful. With that, he continued running, leaving the others dumbfounded. The two beside him stuck out their hands, demanding payment. So what's it going to be? That pig of a great young master still won't leave. You lost the bet. Pay up. Having taken the money, they smugly left. Score a payday, time to drink. You heard that. Leaving trembling with anger, that pig Chin Muryang. Myung ignored them and focused on his own matters. He knew his true strength. Those martial brats daring to mock their master were despicable. But I'll hold back. Why? Because if I fight I'll probably lose. With my experience I can tell just by looking. And that's enough, it's fine. The Cheon clan's secret art I long to learn in my past life must be in the Heavenly Dragon Library. As the great young master Cheon Moryang, entry to the Heavenly Dragon Library should certainly be allowed. It wasn't until sunset that he arrived at the Heavenly Dragon Library. Yu Myung's voice rang with astonishment. What? He panted and asked, what did you just say? Cheon Gang muttered a curse under his breath. He announced coldly, understand, I'll say it again. The young master of the Cheon household, Cheon Moryang, has been removed from his position as heir. Therefore, entering the Heavenly Dragon Library is not permitted. Nameless was refused at the Heavenly Dragon Library gate. By evening, he trudged back home exhausted. Yu Myung flopped onto the bed, dazed in the closed room. And now Yu Myung had figured it out. So this is why I have to stay in this tiny room, stripped of my status as heir. I plan to search the Heavenly Dragon Library for a method to quickly absorb the medicine's potency. Looks like I'll have to find another way. Come to think of it, Cheon Moryang's childhood wasn't easy either. His body was ravaged by side effects from elixirs and enemies surrounded him. On top of that, his followers mocked their lord. Cheon Moryang was as lonely as I am. He must have thought nobody stood with him. Is that why he did it? Did he think even I, his bodyguard, was an enemy? No, there's no need to excuse it. Cheon Moryang led the demon sect in and the Cheon clan patriarch was exterminated. That's the whole truth. The reason he had no allies was the result of his own actions. I'm lonely too, but that's because I was absorbed in training. While thinking, Yu Myung noticed the box on the table. He opened it. Did Walyong cook this? It's all mushrooms and more mushrooms. There should be some meat, it's too bland. Eating, Yu Myung wondered how Cheon Moryang ever got so fat on meals like this. Still, there was one person. Cheon Moryang still had one lone ally. The next morning the air was fresh and clear. He had risen early to exercise, but merely warming up left Yu Myung panting. He rubbed his aching arms. What kind of body collapses just from a warm-up? Everything aches. Walyong was surprised. Oh my, the young master is already up. Are you planning to train again today, sir? Well then, have a good day. He glanced at the clothes in her hands. Yu Myung asked, are those my clothes that need washing? Walyong panicked. Yes, maid apologizes. I should have washed them earlier. I waited to wash them before you slept, but I accidentally fell asleep. Seeing her timid, frightened look, he thought she might not help much, but after all, she was his only ally. Yu Myung suddenly stepped forward, making Walyong even more nervous. Yet he only patted her shoulder. Thanks. She was stunned. And no, why would you say that, young master? Yu Myung smiled. Don't be shy, but could you do me one favor? There'll be a lot more laundry soon. With that, he ran toward the main gate. Walyong watched in surprise, her cheeks flushing. Great young master, night falls and the moon rises. A long day has ended. The pale moonlight shone over the courtyard. He was still pushing himself, running hard. The rolls of fat on Yu Myung's face were trembling, sweat streaming down his face. He felt he was reaching his limit, as if he were about to die. But he remembered the tigerish beatings from teachers in his past life. Someone shouted, where are you chopping at, Yu Myung? Where's your head at, huh? Wanting to go watch the New Year's festival. You ungrateful brat, I feed you, clothe you, and all you think about is partying. Perform the be content and behead 100 times for me. He obediently complied. From behind came Cheon Moryang's voice. Honestly, why is father so slow? He tugged at Cheon Wigang's sleeve, whining that if they didn't leave immediately they'd miss the lantern procession, the performances and fireworks. So many things to do, hurry up, hurry up. He thought to himself from the back, have I ever decided anything for myself? There was no choice. I hold the sword only to repay the kindness of the housemaster who took in an anonymous orphan. Yet at this moment, Yu Myung smiled faintly that life had given him a chance to start over. How delightful. Under the bright night, he continued training. Walyong hid behind and quietly watched Yu Myung. She thought the great young master was indeed very strange. The thud of him collapsing to the ground ahead startled Walyong. She immediately came and carried Yu Myung back. You have to admit Walyong is stronger than I thought. Day after day, Yu Myung diligently ran, even when it was pouring rain. This made the disciples gossip in the rain. Look, he's out again today, clingier than a leech, and it's even raining. Whatever, hand over the money, hurry up. They continued to lose bets because of his persistence. You lost again. Nung So-un always bets he won't show up. He shot a little anger at him. Why does he always put on airs? It's annoying. Pretending to train looks pitiful. Someone beside him warned, that lunatic is loudmouthed. He can hear you now. Nung So-un wasn't afraid. So what if he hears? Don't you know he's lost his heir status and was kicked out of the main residence? Even if that useless guy became head of the house, he wouldn't have real power. Someone curious asked, what do you mean, Nung So-un? He replied, it's obvious. There's the elder steward, and most importantly, do you think Commander Cheon Seonhak would obey the great young master? If they heard that, they'd just laugh, and rightly so. Nung So-un concluded, in the end our disciples have two paths: join Commander Chen Seon-hak's squad or follow the elder steward. Frankly, even if the great young master became head, what could he do to us? Jin-ho barked. Enough, you're just sour from losing a bet, that's why you're talking. The crowd dispersed after the bets. Let's go. As for me, made money today, it's cold though. Nung So-un glanced sideways at Myung. What a nuisance. He stood there watching Myung run lap after lap. Nung So-un bluntly said, that pig's up to something. Does he think by pretending to have woken up he'll get his air position back? How foolish. He pretended not to hear and ran past him. Nung So-un felt like he was punching a sack. He heard everything yet acted like he hadn't. Hwal-young behind heard all these words. She frowned and looked at him with displeasure. Hwal-young fell silent but planted those words in her heart. After the rain, the new leaves on the trees were fresh and green. He continued on to the training spot. Myung's hand drew the real sword from the rack. He held it up and inspected it for a moment. Myung swung the sword, a sharp sword intent sliced outward. He quietly rejoiced that his body had improved. Good. He now had enough strength to hold the sword. If combined with sword technique, the rate of absorbing the spirit medicine would be even faster. While training, a voice rang out nearby. Take back what you just said. What do you mean hurry? A lowly servant and you dare. A whole group of disciples had surrounded Hwal-young. She stepped forward to protect him. Do not insult the great young master. Myung hadn't expected Hwal-young to go to such lengths for him. Nung So-un grabbed her collar. Anger showed on his face. He gritted his teeth. What? Say that again. She clearly repeated the words, insulting the great young master. I told you not to say that. Those nearby murmured, what's going on? What's this about? That Nung So-un is insulting the great young master again. Ignore him, just leave him be, let's go. Can't you see he's busy? He swore. Bastard. How dare you, you lowly servant. Hwal-young showed not a shred of fear. That attitude only made Nung So-un angrier. He drew his sword. Pointing the blade at her, he said, let's see if that arrogant attitude of yours changes. But a strong force struck the blade just as it was about to harm Hwal-young. Caught off guard, Nung So-un had to withdraw his hand. He coldly asked, who is it? Myung stood blocking in front of her. What's going on here? Nung So-un hadn't expected the person who arrived to be him. The great young master. Myung stood before him, solemn, pointing his sword at Nung So-un. Nung So-un staggered back in disbelief. Impossible. Myung ordered the opponent to sheath his sword. He stood dumbfounded, thinking he had misheard. Myung repeated, if you have anything to say to Hwal-young, say it to me. Say it right here. He asked again, are you challenging me, sir? Myung smiled, a contest. How about a fight to the death? If you win, I won't pursue this matter further. I will never step foot in the training arena again. Satisfied. Worried, Hwal-young tried to stop him. Great young master, she thought. No, you can't. He hasn't even touched a sword in a month. Myung planted the scabbard into the ground. She gaped in astonishment at his series of actions. The scabbard was driven deep into the earth. Myung thought to himself, insulting me I can tolerate, but insult my people I will never forgive. Hwal-young stammered, great young master. He recalled his former life's demeanor. That was his conviction. Now, anonymously giving orders, draw your sword, Nung So-un. Nung So-un also drew his sword. You promised, Myung replied. Good, no need to repeat it. Nung So-un was confident. He hadn't expected the great young master to go this far. Well then, fine. He said if I win he won't pursue it, so I just need to win. In strength, speed, and sword technique I'm superior. That bastard doesn't stand a chance. How pathetic. As he pondered, he saw a faint aura appear around Myung. The blade in Myung's hand flashed with sharpness. Nung So-un froze. What is that? What's this mysterious internal energy? He snarled, what's wrong, scared now? He gritted his teeth as Myung's voice rang out. If you don't come. And I dash forward, then I'll come. Nung So-un couldn't predict Myung's move. He instinctively stepped back. He thought to himself, it hit. Yet it was so slow you could clearly see the sword's path. His skill is only that much and he dares a life-or-death duel with me. But Myung's sword intent was not slow at all. The sword in his hand flew up into the air, then fell to the ground. Myung's sword was already at Nung So-un's throat. He felt the chill radiating from the blade. What the? The target from the start wasn't me but my sword. He raised his blade to block and the rebound knocked my sword away. Besides, did the Cheon clan patriarch ever teach this sword technique? Since when did this bastard get so strong? He exposed him. This is supposed to be a life-or-death duel and you turn your back on your opponent in such contempt. Is that how the Cheon clan patriarch trained you? Seeing Nung So-un kneel, Myung sneered, pathetic. You have no right to hold this sword. Blood had already dripped from Myung's hand. He warned him, think carefully why you hold a sword. When you find the answer, come see me and I'll fight you for this sword as the wager. Those words shook him. Hold a sword for what? Myung called her back. Hwal-young, she hurriedly followed. great young master. Nungso-un stood behind, stunned as if he'd lost his soul. The hand he'd raised dropped limply. The group of disciples shuffled away. Back in his room, Walyong hesitated at his door. She finally mustered the courage to step inside. Walyong apologized. Sorry, great young master, I shouldn't have intervened. She bowed her head, but when I saw someone insult your effort, I couldn't help it. Because of me you got hurt, I should have stayed calmer, I'm sorry. Myung thought inwardly the injury came from this body's martial training, not Walyong's fault. Isn't there any better way to explain? I won't blame you, no need to apologize. You stood up for me, didn't you? Walyong fell silent when he spoke the truth to her. Myung declared, insult me and I can bear it, but insult my people and I will absolutely not forgive. To protect my people, no matter who the opponent is, I will not yield. Those words left Walyong astonished. She quietly recalled Chen Maryang's wish, a wish for the new year. I want to become strong. I'll become a strong head of household like that elephant and protect everyone. From tomorrow, I'll go to the training ground and start practicing swordsmanship seriously. Walyong, you'll grow even more, but you will still be under my protection. Walyong felt as if the great young master from those days had returned. She truly felt he had come back. Moved, she wiped her tears with a handkerchief. The great young master she once knew. Suddenly a voice rang out, stop, can you bear the responsibility? They both turned to look. Myung recognized the other as Chen Maryang's uncle. One of the three great pillars of the Chen clan patriarch, commander of the Heavenly Dragon Sword Corps and the Heavenly Phoenix Sword Corps. Chen Xianhak repeated, didn't you hear me? I asked, can you bear the responsibility? He clasped his hands in salute. Please teach me, uncle. Previously I was foolish and failed to see. He thought to himself that the person he trusted and respected most, he hadn't expected we'd face each other in such circumstances. Chen Xianhak sternly, uncle, ridiculous, stop the nonsense and answer the question quickly. Myung was all too familiar with his tone. The way he treated the great young master hadn't changed. After 15 years, he still seemed convinced the great young master couldn't be reformed. He replied, as the great young master, how could I speak without taking responsibility? Protecting my people, that is my conviction. He was astonished. What, your people protect a conviction? Your mouth is filthy. Very well, the move you just used is a forbidden sword technique of the Heavenly Dragon Sword Corps. This is a secret art of the Heavenly Dragon Sword Corps. Outsiders have no right to learn it, which proves you must have secretly learned it from that traitor who broke his oath. The traitor you want to protect is likely one of your people, yes. I will hunt down and punish that traitor, and anyone who sheltered him will be punished too. Fine, let me see what you can do. If you cannot protect him, I'll deem you the source of the chaos and ban you from the training ground forever. Myung realized, I see, he wants to use this to kick me out of the training ground, doesn't he? He spoke up, a traitor. Chen Xianhak stroked his chin as he looked at Myung. He told himself to be careful with his words. Myung answered, there is no traitor. Chen Xianhak was stunned. What? He only dared to think that the one who taught him was that commander, meaning in my past life. Myung explained, I only happened to see and copy the long claw hand. When he heard that, the man snorted. Chen Xianhak felt this was an utterly ridiculous joke. After laughing, he pressed his lips together, and his expression grew serious again. Chen Xianhak began to draw his sword. How absurd. As his blade swept, a strong gust of wind blew over them. He issued a challenge, someone like you can't replicate that move from a single glance. Draw your sword, I'll question your blade directly. Myung clasped his hands, an aura blew past him. An imposing pressure radiated from Chen Xianhak. He replied, I already said if you still don't believe me, perform another move I haven't seen. I'll copy it for you. Seeing Myung agree, the man was taken aback. A fingertip of his still oozed blood. Enough, stop making things hard for Myung. Are you still lying to escape this situation? Enough, I cannot trust a single word from you. You there, the great young master's maid was named. She's panicked. Yes, Commander. Chen Xianhak demanded, speak up, reveal what treacherous plot the scoundrel you serve is scheming. His voice carried a threat, if you dare lie by half, I will cut you down right here. Walyong felt a powerful aura pressing down on her body. Her hands trembled as she clenched them tightly. Walyong reported, over the past month, the great young master has been smiling constantly, sir. Chen Xianhak widened his eyes at the oddly irrelevant answer. He smiled in surprise. That brat's still obsessed with his inferiority complex, is he? Walyong answered honestly, yes, sir. I've been watching Myung's strange behavior and reporting back even when he runs in the training ground. The great young master is always smiling. Though he runs himself to exhaustion, he still looks radiant. Nameless thought in surprise that she had seen everything. Walyong. I'm just happy because it's the first time I've been trying for myself. She added, and even when others mock him, he doesn't bother to glance at them. If it were before, the great young master would have either flown into a rage or run away. But this time he didn't do either even once. Instead, for the first time he drew his sword for someone like a maid. The great young master really has changed. I trust the great young master. Jin Seon-hak thought to himself, you say he has truly changed. His gaze flicked to Mu Myung as Jin Seon-hak asked, what martial art do you know? He answered, Heavenly Sun Divine Art, sir. He concluded, then you're no different from the other disciples. Jin Seon-hak issued a challenge. 2 months, I'll give you 2 months. Within 2 months, defeat the top student among the disciples, and if you do, I'll try to believe you. Jin Seon-hak's voice was low and commanding. Can you do it? He understood perfectly. This was the kind of challenge he always gave him. So Mu Myung cut straight to the chase. 1 month is enough. Jin Seon-hak did not hastily extinguish that confidence. He sheathed his sword, the click echoed in the quiet air. Jin Seon-hak closed with one line then left. Fine, it's decided. He smiled from behind, pleased the agreement was made. Mu Myung slung his sword over his shoulder. Let's go home, Walyong. I need to run a bit more. Jin Seon-hak walked off in the opposite direction. Walyong trailed behind. Yes, great young master. Half a month later, Mu Myung came to the training ground regularly. Today he continued sword practice. Mu Myung's face looked slightly slimmer. In the past half-month, I've practically lived at the training ground and reached the 5th level of the Heavenly Sun Divine Art. I recall that I had almost fully resolved the Yang energy in my body, but with the Yin energy, whose nature differs from the Heavenly Sun Divine Art, I still couldn't dispel it. If only I could learn a higher-level mind method from the Heavenly Dragon Library. I wish my Danshin would heal itself like this wound, huh? A voice called from behind, some people are lucky. You actually have a chance to publicly beat the great young master now. The group teased from afar, come on, what if he heard and quits, runs off before the duel starts? Let him run. He only knows how to repeat sword swings day and night. You all know how that ends anyway. He thought to himself, was spreading the rumor the commander's idea, meant to scare me into quitting early. Suddenly Nameless's gaze landed on the one in the center. Lee Seaki spoke up, don't be so harsh. Maybe the great young master still can't tell land from sword technique. Someone just egging him on. Makes sense. You looked in and asked, what's so funny? Are you the top among the disciples? Lee Seaki looked up with a puzzled expression. He confirmed, yes, I'm the top one here. If it's about the duel, don't worry, I'll finish it gently. Mu Myung was digging through his memory. This face seemed familiar. He asked, what's your name? The man introduced himself. T letter 1EA1, H letter 1EA1, Lee Seaki. That name triggered a memory in Mu Myung's mind. Lee Seaki. I remember now. I didn't recognize him because his features look sharper now. But this is the one who leaked the Cheon clan patriarch's information to the demonic sect. Mu Myung frowned and clicked his tongue. He said, Lee Seaki, I remember you now. The man replied, what an honor, great young master. After saying that, Mu Myung turned and walked off. A plan formed in his head. I originally planned just to try my best regardless of the opponent, but I've changed my mind. Lee Seaki, just wait, you damn traitor. Half a month later, the duel day arrived. People packed the arena to watch. Chatter buzzed, finally today's the day. Can't wait to see the great young master humiliated. But lately he does seem a bit changed. A tiger may change its stripes hard to shift. It's not that easy to change, is it? A loud shout called for order. From this moment, the duel arranged by Commander Jin Seon-hak will officially begin. Fighters, take the stage. Jin Seon-hak called the fighters. Lee Seaki stepped forward. The fighter Lee Seaki stepped forward. He climbed onto the arena. The referee announced, fighter Vuryong, step up. After saying that, he fell silent, because Chin Maryong wasn't there. Those watching wondered what's going on. Why hasn't he appeared? Don't tell me he didn't come to the training ground. Did he run away? Someone couldn't help but snort with laughter. The crowd laughed hard. Knew it. I predicted this would happen. Where else could that wayward great young master have gone? Jin Seon-hak looked puzzled at the scene, while Lee Seaki was very confident. You announced that Chin Maryong is right here. The man smirked and glanced toward the sound. The commander also turned and his eyes showed surprise. The slim youth walked in ahead of Walyong. He silently stepped onto the arena. People below murmured, where's that pig? And who is this stranger? Who is he? Wait, his face looks a bit familiar, don't tell me. They came to a conclusion. Great young master, he said, I'm Chin Maryong, I've just arrived. His appearance in this new guise left everyone stunned. Wait, is that the great young master? Is that really him? Why is he suddenly so thin? Impossible. He glanced toward where Jin Seon-hak was seated. Mu Myung pressed his palms together politely and said, sorry for arriving late, uncle. He changed the subject and brushed it off. We'll deal with that later, are you ready? Mu Myung replied, of course, sir. He brandished his sword and glanced at his opponent. Lee Seaki thought to himself, what's this? That provoking look, has his appearance changed? He's only been swinging a sword for a month and already wants to fight me. I really can't understand what the commander is thinking anymore. But it's good for me. Today it's not just the commander present, but also the leaders of the Heavenly Dragon Sword Corps and masters of the Heavenly Phoenix Sword Corps. This is a good chance to score points with them. Mu Myung guessed this man's intention. It seems in your eyes I don't even exist. The calculations to curry favor with superiors reach even here. There, Lee Seok-gi, you're always like that. A petty, crafty man who uses others as tools to cling to power. After joining the Heavenly Dragon Sword Corps, he climbed up by brown-nosing, using sweet words to win the superior's favor. Then he secretly sold information to the demonic sect. By the time it was noticed, it was already too late. The punishment I couldn't carry out in my previous life. Of course, you haven't yet committed that crime now, so you must stop right here. All along, things probably proceeded according to your plan, which allowed you to rise and sit in the position of top disciple. Yumio knew the man all too well, but he lifted the wooden sword and said, I know you well, your path ends here. An announcement reminded them, the match only ends when it's declared over. Don't forget, this is not a fight to the death. Mu Myung's stance was intensely focused. Lee Seok-gi looked very confident. Jin Seon-hak shouted, the match begins. No sooner had he said that than Mu Myung lunged at his opponent. The man across calmly waited. Mu Myung took a firm step to gain momentum. He leaped high, preparing a downward strike. Lee Seok-gi was unfazed. I heard you beat Noong So on this way. Attack first, then use a strange sword technique to knock the opponent's sword away. Then try to block this move. Mu Myung's sword intent flared bright. He raised his sword. If you think you can trick me, go ahead and try. The wooden sword swiftly descended. Lee Seok-gi raised his sword to parry. Mu Myung was somewhat surprised at how agile the man's footwork was. Lee Seok-gi curled a smile as the initial exchange succeeded. The wooden sword in his hand flicked upward. Your sword dropped back behind you. He instantly teleported behind Mu Myung and struck. You took a hit to the back that made you grimace in pain. The blade swung toward the rear. Lee Seok-gi dodged. I had intended to go easy out of respect for the great young master. But with all the leaders gathered like this, how could I miss the opportunity? His hand grabbed Mu Myung's wrist, so don't blame me, heh. Caught by Lee Seok-gi, you gritted your teeth and tried to pull free. The man's sword spun around. He seized the hilt and then drove it into Mu Myung's chest. Lee Seok-gi's foot began to lift. He straightened his leg and kicked you hard. Mu Myung clutched his side with one hand and staggered backward. The man's next move left you astonished. This time Lee Seok-gi finally began to manifest sword intent. He called out, watch closely, great young master. This is. Sword intent flashed around Lee Seok-gi. Its speed was astonishing. Mu Myung instinctively bent aside to dodge. He confidently slashed his sword through your space. Mu Myung cried out in pain. Lee Seok-gi sneered, this is the difference in rank. From behind, your knees buckled and you went down on them. He thought to himself that even if the opponent were Chin Muryang, in front of the elders, he likely wouldn't be disappointing. Lee Seok-gi's hand rose. He said, everything is going according to plan. Thinking inwardly, all right, shout my name out. Lee Seok-gi closed his eyes, but the cheers he expected did not come. Lee Seok-gi opened his eyes. What? He couldn't hear a sound. Suddenly, his gaze went blank. What's happening? Why is the arena tilted to one side like this? Lee Seok-gi, bewildered, fell down. A shadow blotted out the light. He looked up at Lee Seok-gi and saw you glancing back, Chin Muryang. Mu Myung asked, sleeping well. He racked his brain and couldn't figure it out. What just happened? Why am I on the ground? Lee Seok-gi tried to move but was helpless. His body wouldn't obey. The sword in his hand had snapped in two and fallen beside him. Lee Seok-gi was shocked. That was my wooden sword. A look of astonishment crossed his face. I remember now. At the moment you, Mu Myung, were bringing your sword down. He had raised his to parry. At that instant, Lee Seok-gi's sword broke. It shattered right before his eyes. Lee Seok-gi regretted it, realizing now was already too late. Your shining blade appeared. One strike and he had no time to react. Half of the wooden sword fell away. At the same time, Lee Seok-gi collapsed. He couldn't believe it. Have I been defeated by Chin Muryang? Mu Myung spoke up. The traitor still hasn't revealed himself. He didn't understand. What traitor? You warned today. I'll let you off here, but from now on be careful. I'll be watching you. Lee Seok-gi couldn't accept the truth. It was just a momentary lapse on my part. Who would have thought I'd be defeated by someone who's only trained a few months? But what do I do from now on? Looks like I'm truly doomed. Those below murmured, is it over? That quick, finished in a single move. While Young moved, softly called out to the great young master. Mu Myung's gaze flicked toward those seated above. Jin Seon-hak still hadn't recovered his composure. He glanced at the calm figure below. Tianhe remained speechless. The two of them simply stared at each other. The entire arena fell completely silent. One person's hand began to tremble. Myung-hak thought to himself, that idiot, that useless guy from the training ground ruined everything. He gritted his teeth, furious enough to die absolutely livid. People began whispering again. One strike, the chief disciple lost in just one strike. They started to suspect some kind of cheating. That useless brat must be feeling pretty pleased with himself. You glanced toward him and saw him exhaling in relief. Jin Seon-hak stood and announced the winner of this match is. Yu Myung interrupted. I know well your dissatisfaction with me. He froze, unsure of what you were plotting. You continued, the wrongs I committed in the past, perhaps nothing can erase them. I accept all of it. I truly was a worthless scoundrel. Jin Seon-hak and Walyong frowned. The nameless glanced toward the disciples in the stands. Maybe I can't remember all the faces of those I've harmed, because those were deeds of Chen Muryang, not mine. But I vow to shoulder all those sins, because right now I am Chen Muryang. He gripped your hand tightly. Yu Myung faced the disciples in the stands. You announced, however, that here and now you wish to atone for all the madness and sins you once committed. Right there, Yu Myung bowed deeply, with sincere demeanor. The whole place fell silent. No one expected the usually arrogant young master to admit fault like this. They glanced at one another, suspicion showing in everyone's eyes. Walyong watched you with worry. Jin Seon-hak was taken from one surprise to another by Yu Myung. Your bearing at this moment was unusually proud and majestic. Yu Myung reiterated, if your hatred is not yet gone, you may come to this arena at any time. Your words carried weight, for I will always be waiting here. Still no one spoke up. Yu Myung clasped his hands and bowed toward Jin Seon-hak in salute. Then you turned and left. Let's go, Walyong. He was still in shock. The sky today was strangely clear blue. Yu Myung expressed his gratitude to her. Thank you for holding the heavenly light sword for me. I prepared it in case we had to fight with a real sword. Walyong replied, it's okay. The maid was very nervous, but holding this sound blade made her feel much safer. You held out your hand. That's good then. Give it here so I can hold it. She wondered why. Yu Myung couldn't say why because. Walyong lifted the sword to her cheek and rubbed it lightly. Can't the maid hold it? Right now the maid still needs Chen Muryang, you know. That form of address stunned you. Chen Muryang's voice rose from behind asking, what were you about to cut just now? Yu Myung turned and saw Jin Seon-hak standing at the main gate. You smiled inwardly nostalgic, didn't expect to be asked that question again. He repeated, the sword technique you displayed earlier. I'm asking what you meant to cut. Yu Myung replied calmly, the sky. I wanted to cut the sky in two. Surprise showed in his eyes. Jin Seon-hak thought to himself, how ridiculous. That was the sword path I had sought my whole life, yet the one who understands that truth is you, the person I loathe so much. He spoke, you won the bet. Say what you want and I will grant it. You replied, if so, please allow me into the heavenly dragon library. Jin Seon-hak flatly refused. Aside from that, it is beyond my authority. You stroked your chin, pondering another request. Suddenly, Yu Myung had an idea. One person a day, please arrange for someone to spar with me. He thought he must have misheard. Spar daily, is that really enough? You confirmed, yes, that's enough. There's no better training than real combat. That fighting intent surprised Jin Seon-hak. He asked, you want to become stronger day by day? You replied, that is exactly my wish. He turned and stepped out of the gate. Walyong asked curiously, the sky, what does that mean? Yu Myung revealed there was one matter, something only he and that commander knew. The next day a new day began. Yet someone was irritated. Damn it, so annoying I could die. What? Spar one person every day? He just got lucky once, don't get cocky. Lee Seok-gi, I've seen through him since he pretended to be the chief disciple though he's got no real skill. Isn't that fine though? Myung-hak finished speaking and stared at the sword in his hand. Try drawing the sword and see. On the gleaming blade appeared the scar on Myung-hak's face. In his memory, one day the arrogant voice of Chen Muryang rang out. How dare you lowlifes? Do you know who I am? I am the eldest young master of the Chen clan patriarch. I am Chen Muryang himself. The man being bullied fell backward. Why would he do such a thing? Those around whispered that it was rare to get into such a fancy tavern thanks to this rich new soldier, and yet he ran into that useless brat. What to do? Shall we leave? Don't look, you might get dragged into trouble. Young Myung-hak stood up. Back then, should we step in? There might be a killing. A companion at the table warned, hey, stop right there, new soldier, don't bring disaster on yourself. Chen Muryang swung his sword in anger. You take me for a joke. You treat the illustrious young master of the Chen family as a joke, huh? Someone shouted, young master, move aside, it's dangerous. The sharp blade sliced through. It grazed Myung-hak's cheek. Fresh blood began to fall to the floor. Chen Muryang angrily demanded, who are you? How dare you block my way? See. You're hurt now, stupid fool. He hadn't expected that stepping in would cost him a wound to the face. Chen Muryang coldly said, wait, is he faking the injury to play the victim? That trick won't work, get lost. Those at his feet trembled. No, young master, the blood is flowing. That's why Myung-hak bore a grudge against you, you piece of trash. I'll pretend to slip and leave a scar on your face so it looks exactly the same. You were my first sparring opponent. Mu Myung was still diligently practicing swordsmanship. His body had become much more agile. Mu Myung's opponent stood below watching. He trembled with anger. You bastard, you challenged me yourself, but now that you're here you don't even pay me any attention. Get your mind ready, I'll use a real sword to take your life. Walyong thoughtfully poured tea for Myung-hak. Please have some tea, young master, while you wait. While still angry, he glanced over wide-eyed. She offered tea and pastries. It might take a while. Once he starts training, he usually ignores everything around him. There's also dim sum. Would you like some? Myung-hak recognized her as the attendant who once scuffled with Noong So-un. He asked, wait, before the sparring. Walyong stood gently by his side, waiting. Myung-hak's anger lessened. He stared intently at her lovely face, then took the hot cup and asked him, you train like this every day? Walyong replied, yes sir, not a single day missed. Diligent training is certainly better than before, but the maid worried whether he was pushing himself too hard. Myung-hak wondered, that young master treated you terribly, didn't he? Why do you worry about him so much? She did not deny it. Yes, the young master did wrong to me many times, but he has changed. The current young master is trying to amend his past mistakes. I believe in the young master's determination. Myung-hak began to think it through. Amend his mistakes. It's true that lately he does seem to have changed in some way. His training also seemed serious, though he only kept jumping up and slashing down the same single move repeatedly. Suddenly, he noticed something odd. When he saw Mu Myung stamp and leap, Myung-hak immediately spotted it. Wait, that foot placement. Along with the height of the jump. Even the way he held the sword each time was identical. How could that be? That sword technique on that damned young master. And the blade's path aimed right there. Myung-hak copied it too. Don't tell me. He's fighting with me. The moment you swung your sword down, he also saw that strike would defeat him. Myung-hak's heart shook irrationally. I haven't even stepped onto the training floor yet. Had he already vectored his blade against me beforehand? Mu Myung had finished training. Damn it. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Pleased to meet you. Myung-hak, he was surprised. You know my name. Your voice affirmed confidently. Of course, one day you'll become a pillar master of our clan. I'm trying to remember everyone's names. Myung-hak was shocked. Really, all disciples in the clan? Your gaze landed on the scar on his face. You knew well that scar was no small matter, that it was caused by me, wasn't it? Myung-hak frowned in confirmation. That's right. Mu Myung realized, is that so? He thought. No wonder I sometimes felt that murderous look. It's because of that. I don't quite recall Cheon Muryang's power then, but... His hands slowly folded together. Mu Myung bowed his head to accept blame. I sincerely apologize for my stupid mistake that left you with an indelible scar. Though I cannot turn back time to fix it, let me atone in this way, please. Myung-hak froze when he saw you bow before him. He privately recalled Cheon Muryang's arrogant demeanor from the past. He actually just apologized to me. Normally, the young master would never admit a mistake and say sorry. He always blamed others and spat insults. That young master bowed and apologized. Could this really be the same person? The maid's words aren't a fabrication then. He set the teacup down on the tray. I concede. You were surprised? Concede. The match hasn't even started. Myung-hak turned to leave. Today I admit defeat. He vowed that next time he'd prepare thoroughly and formally challenge the young master. Having said that, Myung-hak left, leaving Walyong standing there bewildered. You felt relieved? Had he accepted the apology? He even seemed to be smiling a bit. She replied, probably so, but he wasn't actually smiling, sir. Mu Myung asked a favor. Walyong, I need to ask you for something. Please help me record every evil thing I've done before, okay? Don't omit a single act. If I ever hurt you, don't hide it. Write it all down. Walyong obeyed. Yes, young master. This is the next action you plan to take, repairing your mistakes. It's the beginning, what I as Cheon Muryang must bear. In the days that followed, the duels continued without pause. Some used these matches to settle old grudges. Young master, all of this is your karmic consequences, don't blame me. Mu Myung stood ready to face them. One downward stroke from him left the opponent unable to parry. He dropped his sword and collapsed to the ground with a thud. Mu Myung stepped forward and said, you've done well, let's fight again when we get the chance. But most were defeated after a single move and no one could beat Cheon Muryang. That opponent left nursing resentment, damn it, if not for a lapse then. Walyong beside him stuck out her tongue teasingly at the victory. But even that person had to reassess. A lapse, you say? Countless images of Mu Myung's diligent efforts since his change flashed through his mind. He swore, grabbed his sore shoulder and left. Damn it. By the end of the duels, Cheon Muryang's undefeated record still remained unbroken. Mu Myung even took the chance to sit and cultivate. An aura field shimmered around him. Mu Myung thought to himself that although the Heavenly Sun divine art had reached the 7th level of accomplishment, it still couldn't dispel the cold chi. That cold chi was sealing the main meridians of his danshin like two yin-yang channels, blocking the flow of true chi. At this rate, even a profound inner skill filling the danchin couldn't take effect. If he forced circulation, the meridians would burst, causing demonic chaos in the mind. Relying solely on an entry-level yang internal skill like the Heavely Sun divine art could probably only get him this far. Is there really no other way than entering the Heavenly Dragon Library to search for a higher martial manual? Yet what's this nagging feeling in my chest? It's like I'm forgetting something very important. Mu Myung suddenly shouted in excitement. I've remembered, this can't go on forever. We must hurry and get ready. The master will return today. The benefactor took in a penniless nobody like me and raised me. I can't wait to meet him. You quickly changed into a fresh set of clothes. You thought to yourself, master, should I call him father? Though I once secretly fantasized about that. Someone outside called out, young master, eldest young master. Mu Myung remembered that maid, your Hua Hung, Wal Young's friend, right? She panted as she reported, it's bad, Wal Young, sister Wal Young has a bad feeling. Wal Young, are you all right? She brought terrible news. She's being mistreated by the young master's fiancé. Mu Myung was stunned. What? On Wal Young's side, a plate of food slipped from her hands and fell to the ground. She also dropped to her knees, trembling with fear. Wal Young kowtowed, I'm sorry, truly sorry, miss. So Hai frowned and looked at her coldly. The people she had brought along were surrounding Wal Young. She was utterly terrified at that moment. So Hai's dress was stained. Once clothing is soiled, it can't be made clean by mere apologies. Waving the fan in her hand, she said, just handle it according to the rules. A guard cast a glance and signaled to the other man. He stepped forward and drew his sword. The moment the blade was raised high, Hua Hung ran forward to stop him. Don't. He ignored her as if he hadn't heard and continued to swing down. Mu Myung appeared in time, swinging his sword and slicing the opponent's blade out of his hand. Both Dangson and So-hai turned to look at him simultaneously. He stood there with a cold demeanor. Their whole group drew their swords at once. Mu Myung demanded, what do you think you're doing? Wal Young trembled as she called, young master. So-hai spoke up, how dare you obstruct the Dang clan's affairs, and who are you people? You introduced him, the eldest young master of the Chen clan patriarch, Chen Muryang. She replied, how rude, first time meeting you, I am a daughter of the Sichuan Dang clan. My name is So-hai. Those three names made Vodan recall So-hai, Chen Muryang's wife in his past life. So-hai of the Cold Blossom, Jichen clan patriarch in the past, had proposed marriage with the Sichuan Dang clan. The Sichuan Dang clan was famed for expertise in poisons and antidotes. The master believed the Dang clan could cure Chen Muryang, who was half dead from conflicting elixirs. The Sichuan Dang clan happily accepted the proposal, since the marriage would help them advance into the Central Plains. Perhaps that's why the young lady of the Sichuan Dang clan came already dressed in wedding clothes and calmly accepted this disappointing first meeting. The wedding then proceeded quickly. Seeing Chen Muryang's health improve little by little after 10 years of treatment, the master grew especially soft toward the Sichuan Dang clan. Knowing this, the Sichuan Dang clan thoroughly used the Chen clan patriarch as a stepping stone into marriage with So-hai, which marked the beginning of the patriarch's downfall. Mu Myung answered, yes, So-hai. I'm asking you, what do you think you're playing at? So-hai lightly flicked the fan in her hand. As you can see, young master, I'm punishing that low servant girl who sullied my clothes. You said coldly, simply for that reason, she dares to try to kill a maid of the Chen clan patriarch. She smiled smugly. In the eldest young master's eyes, she saw only a low servant girl, not the value of this garment. Whatever, so be it. But you just said it was because of that servant. What if what she spilled was poison? What if she was an assassin disguised as a maid? The Sichuan Dang clan has its rules. This punishment follows the Sichuan Dang clan's code. Vodan cut in, don't make excuses. This is not the Sichuan Dang clan. At the Chen clan patriarch's house, you must follow the laws of the Chen clan patriarch. Moreover, your words just now insult our family and our people. She retorted that it is the young master who is insulting the Sichuan Dang clan's rules. If the Chen clan patriarch loses his authority, then those rules are meaningless. The Sichuan Dang clan will enforce their clan laws. If you can stop them, try it. Dangson radiated killing intent as he drew his sword. Mu Myung was shaken, sword chi. A blade of sword chi sliced up into the air. The man had swung down with a strike, and you immediately blocked it. Mu Myung realized the disparity in strength between them. Dangson kept pressing with continuous sword strikes, forcing you backward. Wal Young called out anxiously, young master. So-hai frowned and drew out a hairpin. The hairpin in her hand was compact. On Dangson's side, sword chi surged like a gale. His footwork was nimble, and his attacks were fierce. You kept retreating, only able to defend. So strong, he's the Mrs. Personal Guard. If he can use sword chi, he's at least a first-rate master. Only his sword technique is evenly matched. Both internal and external skills were being overwhelmed as they paused for a moment. Myung stamped his foot in anger. Fine then. It was time for him to rush forward and counterattack. This time he leapt down from above and unleashed the sword of subtle arts. What I aimed at was not the opponent. The primary target was his sword. The moment his opponent's sword entered my range, I would extend my claw and snatch it. This is the heavenly dragon style, Dragon's Claw. The clash brightened the space as sword chi met sword chi. Myung's sword fell. Dangson frowned and glanced at it. Myung's hand also missed the catch. You were stunned, you failed to catch the sword. The sword hit the ground with a clanging sound that awakened the silence. Dangson sneered, what's that? I thought it would be some amazing secret technique. You gritted your teeth. The gap in power was too great, so even the heavenly dragon-style Dragon's Claw was useless. A voice rang out, stop. I didn't expect my betrothed to care so much about a mere maid. Seems I was right to come myself. Sohai brushed past Myung and said she'll see him at tonight's banquet, hoping he might be a bit gentler then. Hwahung hurriedly called, young master, Walyong has been. She fainted at the sight. Myung panicked. You ran over to her, Walyong. Sohai has gathered information today. The eldest young master's condition seems different from what I've heard. If the master had known this, he wouldn't have proposed the match. At this rate, it'll all fall apart. We need to turn this engagement into a done deal quickly. She asked, how did your family scouts assess him? The man replied, very weak. His swordsmanship is decent, but his internal skill is such that 2 subordinates could handle him. Sohai ordered, then send 4 people. Tonight the eldest young master must absolutely not appear at the banquet. Meanwhile, Myung was carrying her. Walyong, wake up. You checked her pulse. Could it be poisoning? Myung's gaze tightened as he glanced at the plate of food, where pieces of meat were scattered all over the ground. Earlier, Walyong had said, young master, let me go fetch the rice. This time there were no mushrooms, so please rest assured. Myung had realized something was wrong. He picked her up and cursed, damn it. Hwahung, bring me my sword. She bent down to pick up the sword. Yes. Chin-ho hid at a distance, unsure how to act. What's going on here? Should we inform Nung So-un? Walyong was taken to the clinic. The physician inside examined her. The needle was removed. I've provisionally treated her based on symptoms of poisoning. While we can suppress it to prevent deterioration, if this truly is a Sichuan Dang clan poison as the eldest young master claimed, I'm afraid it can't be cured without an antidote from the Sichuan Dang clan. His expression darkened. Myung gave orders. Hwahung, I'm leaving Walyong in your care. She asked curiously, where are you going, sir? He replied, there's the master's banquet tonight, isn't there? How could a son be absent? Myung's plan was to play the part of a madman for them tonight. Jin Seon-hak over there was lost in thought. He had dragged the Sichuan Dang clan into this out of curiosity. What is the eldest bro scheming? One misstep and they'll become tigers that swallow the Chen clan patriarch whole. A burst of energy spread from behind. His spine stiffened. Because Jin Seon-hak sensed an extremely terrifying aura of true chi. He peered into the distance. Who is it? Outside the forest, birds were scattering in chaotic flight. It was Myung practicing swordwork in sudden anger. Each stroke struck the tree trunk. Jin Seon-hak had arrived and quietly observed from the side. He stood with his arms crossed, not disturbing him. Jin Seon-hak realized it wasn't the sky-splitting intent of the heavenly cleaver sword, but rather it contained extreme rage and killing intent. It was clearly sword intent meant to cleave a person. Too dangerous, he might be consumed by his own rage. Myung shouted in fury. His sword sliced down along the trunk. The tree began to split to either side. In no time it was reduced to a stump, and you were panting heavily. He stepped forward and asked, you said you'd strike at the sky, so why get angry and hack at a tree like this? What are you furious about? Myung fell silent before answering. I'm angry at myself because I'm too weak. So I still can't protect my people. If I want to protect them, I must become stronger. Jin Seon-hak looked puzzled. Your people, what do you mean by your people? Myung replied plainly, they are the ones I always want to protect and care for. They are the Chen clan patriarch. He was struck, remembering that earlier you said your people weren't those people who are loyal to you, but those you wish to devote yourself to. It was because my heart was too narrow-minded. Jin Seon-hak praised that spirit. Good. Before in the corridor you said you'd replicated the heavenly dragon-style Dragon's Claw you happened to see, right? And you also said that if I demonstrated another sword technique, you'd try to replicate that too. Those words, can you prove them to me now? Myung turned back confused and asked, what for? He swung his sword. I am the one who created the heavenly dragon-style Dragon's Claw and passed it to the heavenly dragon sword core. I have also conceived the next move, but never taught it to anyone, because it walks the line between tearing the sky and slaughtering a person. It is a stroke no one has known. Do you want to try learning it? Then show me afterwards. What happens when you dare to mess with a dragon's horn? This is the ultimate technique of the heavenly dragon sword. Myung was demonstrating for you the dragon's wrath. The aura hit so powerfully you almost couldn't stand. He unleashed a stroke, the reverse scale slash. The disciples in the distance saw a whirlwind rise at the edge of the forest. They all looked up in astonishment and whispered, "What is that? That blast of wind, isn't that from the direction where the eldest young master was?" For now, quickly hide the clothes first, we'll go check it out later. Everything must be settled before the banquet begins. One of them took out a vial. If it's the lethal poison the misused, that person won't move for days. Besides, the symptoms resemble drunkenness, so even the doctor won't diagnose it. If the scene looks like someone passed out drunk, our mission is done. They discussed, even if that man insists he was ambushed by an apprentice, who would believe a decadent playboy? We're disguised perfectly. All right, act now. On Myung's side, his sleeve had been slit. You froze. Would you really try to kill your own nephew? The distant trunks had been cut down. The reverse scale slash's force is indeed terrifying. Cheon asked, have you noticed the difference between the reverse scale slash and the dragon's claw? Once a swordsman is familiar with the sword in hand, there's a sense that the blade is part of your body. That illusion, called mansword unity, is what Dragon's Claw exploits to its advantage. Because they didn't expect the sword might leave the hand, if attacked recklessly, the sword will instantly fly from the hand. Myung admired it. This is the secret of Dragon's Claw, the very sky of Dragon's Claw. He added, still, Dragon's Claw isn't a perfectly flawless sword style. Sometimes it becomes useless against masters whose realms are vastly superior. The scene from earlier when fighting Dangson flashed through Myung's mind. He frowned as those bad memories suddenly returned. He asked, but there's a flaw that even those high-level masters can fall into a trap because of. Do you know what it is? Myung realized, I understand now, it's the sky of the reverse scale slash. He began, exactly. Cheon asked, can you do it? Myung glanced toward the other cut tree trunks. How could I master it in a single night? But I will absolutely train it successfully before the banquet begins. He reminded him, I didn't mean that. I meant the matter of protecting the Cheon clan patriarch. At first, he was a little surprised to be asked about it. The corner of Myung's mouth curled up slightly. Here he promised, I will definitely do it. Cheon satisfied sheathed his sword. Good. The chi around here is getting chaotic, all because of those filthy, cowardly rats. I'll head to the banquet first. Myung bowed his head in salute from behind. He announced, then now, let me behold the faces of those filthy, cowardly rats. Myung's gaze flicked toward the group of people posing as disciples hiding behind the bushes. They whispered, damn, have we been discovered? Don't panic, it's common to run into our family's disciples at the Heavenly Market Clan estate. Just make him drop his guard and administer the paralytic poison, and the mission is done. So the whole group rushed out at once. One of them spoke up, please forgive the eldest young master. We are disciples of the Cheon clan patriarch, merely looking for a place to train and accidentally encountered you two with no other intent. If we've troubled you, please pardon us. He sneered mockingly, pretending to be disciples when you're like that. They whispered, pretending, suddenly insulting others like that, no wonder he's called a madman. He warned, I remember the faces and names of all the disciples clearly, yet I don't know who you are. Convenient, I'm in need of sparring partners, and as for who you are, we can discuss that later after your mouths do the talking. The leader transmitted a command to his men, nothing has changed and there's no proof of our identities. Knock out the eldest young master first, then force him to take the paralytic poison and it's done. The Cheon clan patriarch is a martial family with many training arenas. At some point they ended up at the most secluded, least frequented training ground. The disciples who had been defeated by Cheon Muryang gathered like they were possessed. Among them was Nung So-un, who was also training diligently. Eldest young master, soon I will reclaim my sword. And Myung as well. Eldest young master, next time I will definitely win. Jinho returned anxious with news. You lot have a big problem, Nung So-un. Seeing no one paying attention to him, he felt a bit embarrassed. Immersed in training, hey, pay some attention to me. Thus Jinho mentioned the eldest young master from earlier. At the mere mention of him, they all widened their eyes and looked toward him in unison. Eldest young master, what's the matter? Jinho reported, these idiots are the eldest young master's problem. The sight is truly disgraceful. Hurry and put on your clothes, we have matters to attend to. I just witnessed something earth-shattering. The side of the forest remained peaceful. The canopy leaves were sliced and scattered everywhere. Myung drew his sword. The enemies were struck one after another. You were dealing with the next one. He couldn't match Myung's agile moves. The sword scabbard struck straight into the opponent's abdomen. His vision blurred and he began to collapse. After dealing with him, Yu panted, a little exhausted. Myung glanced at the man behind who was picking up his sword. He thought to himself that he was much stronger than expected and kept getting stronger. And these damn swords too, they're completely different from the Sichuan Dang clan's blades, so they're awkward to use. Disguises really bring disaster upon you. We underestimated the eldest young master. Myung demanded, now reveal your identities and purpose, will you? Although I've guessed part of it. He raised his sword. What if you've guessed? Without proof, you'll never expose our identities. You replied, what proof? Who else could pull off this stunt right now besides the Sichuan Dang clan? Those words left him speechless. Myung continued, not only I but everyone will surely think so. That's enough for me. Thanks to your kindness, this engagement is surely ruined. Much obliged. The man stubbornly insisted, eldest young master, you're still very inexperienced. You urged this time it'll surely work. You've started to grasp the crux. Charge. Myung swiftly rushed toward the opponent. This time you would use him to open the blade, the reverse scale slash. He also risked his life, lifting his sword to strike back. Sounds echoed from the forest. The sunlight blazed down brightly. Dangson was bent over, looking at the log planted in the ground. He observed that the sunbeam had moved a quarter onward, about 3 breaths, right? But why haven't the 3 who went to find the eldest young master returned? Had he already guessed their failure? If so, all evidence must be destroyed without a trace. The sect disciples will surely deny it. But that's not enough. Buried or not, if they release scent hounds, they'll be discovered sooner or later. The disciples group, on hearing the news, was furious. What? Want to kill the maid over that? Are they all mad? Jinho, leading, said, as far as I know, that's the code of the Sichuan Dang clan. The Dang clan's toxins and hidden weapons, even a tiny amount or a graze in an instant can kill. So you can never tell when a strike comes or who struck. You cannot guard against it beforehand or trace it afterward. Therefore, it is absolutely forbidden to touch the Dang clan's lineal blood heir. I hear they set severe punishments. Even accidental contact has had no exceptions, implying anyone who touched it has died. I've seen it with my own eyes. They're terrified and immediately step aside for fear of accidental contact. Honestly, it's scary suddenly becoming part of a family like that. Our fates as followers completely depend on the master. As for the Cheon clan patriarch, how to put it? A bit lax or perhaps too lenient, but I seem to like it. The 2 behind replied, same here. Cheon clan patriarch seems very fair. Even the decadent eldest young master was abandoned. I agree. The only place that would accept someone of my age as a disciple is the Cheon clan patriarch. Jinho revealed, but on second thought the Cheon clan patriarch is strange. Even that crazy disciple who dared oppose the eldest young master is still alive and well. If it were another sect, that man's head would have long ago been tossed into Hongmai's cesspit. That crazy disciple Nung So-un, he spoke up. Even so, they dared cause trouble in someone else's clan. They truly underestimate the Cheon clan patriarch. So what you mean is we should go rescue the eldest young master, right? He confirmed. Yes, because our people are capable of standing against the Sichuan Dang clan. Right now it's just the eldest young master. Everyone else is busy receiving guests. We're the only ones free. Nung so unworried, but what can a few guys like us possibly do? Lee Seoki didn't overthink it. Just go, this is the family's honor. First, let's find the eldest young master, then we can plan. The disciples at the back complained that he was impulsive again. Truly unreliable people. In his head he calculated, excellent, danger brings opportunity. If I demonstrate leadership and win great merit this time, I'll surely regain the captain's trust. But if things go south, I'll just hand over the eldest young master and defect to the Sichuan Dang clan. Problem solved. And if I'm going to do that, I must personally escort the eldest young master. And he discovered Dangson destroying the evidence. Lee Seoki was astonished. Why would a master of the Tang Gate appear here? And why burn the clothes like that? On top of that, choosing such a secluded spot. Dangson was blowing on the tinder pile, and he noticed someone spying. Lee Seoki had been spotted. He gaped in panic, then hurriedly ran back. Lee Seoki was still shaken. Someone asked, what's going on, eldest disciple? He feared the secret things that fellow was doing. I accidentally discovered them. Lee Seoki's eyes glanced back. That meant, just as he guessed, Dangson had leapt up. Lee Seoki swore, damn it. The 2 disciples had been cut down, so it was as he thought. The group of disciples stepped forward and Dangson struck with deadly intent. That man saw me burning the clothes. He can testify that we disguised ourselves to assassinate the eldest young master. We must kill him. Myeonghak parried one of his strikes to protect Lee Seok-gi, but that blade was gradually slicing through his scabbard. Dangsun was surprised. Can a disciple here even parry my sword? Another rushed in to seize the moment and attack. He swung his sword at the man. Dangsun fell back. Who are you? Not disciples. Then why? The two replied, why are we so strong? Because we're not ordinary disciples. We're the bunch who decided to train naked after being so shocked by getting trounced by the eldest young master. It's the fierce sword techniques of the Heavenly Dragon Sword Corps and the Heavenly Phoenix Sword Corps, personally led and directed by Cheon. Among the 10 most outstanding disciples, only 5 were chosen for the sword team, and we were the top candidates. Now do you understand why we're so strong? Except for this one, I'm not a candidate. Dangsun sneered, still just a bunch of rookies. I'll let you taste what a true martial master's wall feels like. A disciple from behind cut in. See, I told you so. Turns out the 2 disciples who were just cut down stood up. Come on up and let's see who's stronger, but play fair, 7 against 1, remember. He froze them. I remember. Now Dangsun only just noticed. It turned out they'd drawn their swords to block in that situation, and they still managed to parry. Dangsun found himself surrounded by disciples. He laughed when the group of rookies looked down on him. Dangsun swore that those newborn pups truly didn't know their place. I'll show you the real gap in class. But in the end, they beat him until his face was swollen. Dangsun was carried back by Myeonghak. Lee Seok-gi wanted to split off my stomach. I'll go take a dump for a bit, you go on ahead, I'll follow. Who curses at a time like this? Damn it. He went over to the clothes, intending to put out the fire. In his mind, he thought these garments must be suspicious, which is why someone wanted to burn them. If so, I should keep them. Might come in handy if I join the Sichuan Dang clan later. Another disciple called, hurry up, that heir's disciple is taking a dump, move it along. Lee Seok-gi slyly stuffed it into his chest. Let me pocket this bit, I'll catch up right after. Shinho walked and said, hey, what the hell are you talking about? Lee Seok-gi may be an annoying fool, but he has a point. Right now, finding the eldest young master is the top priority. He stopped, staring intently ahead. Mu Myung at this moment was holding a vial of medicine that he had fished from that man's person, until the yellow cloud gloomily descended. An announcement rang out, the host has arrived. Jun Waigang entered the banquet. He exuded an aura of solemnity. Someone remarked, well, no wonder he's the host, truly imposing and dashing. Those upstairs gushed, if we'd known, we'd have married him off earlier. Madam, please keep your dignity. His bearing was like a finely forged treasured sword, a shining example for martial talents. Jun Waigang stood on the platform, hands clasped. He began, thanks to my fellow martial friends for attending today's banquet. Jin Clan Patriarch Jin Muryang, before we begin the banquet, I'd like to invite a special guest to step forward. Someone shouted, the heiress from the Sichuan Dang clan is entering. Others murmured, the Sichuan Dang clan. If it's the heiress of the Sichuan Dang clan. Binghua Tang's so high, rumor says she's the most beautiful woman in Sichuan, well-deserved reputation. But why is she appearing before the Jin Clan Patriarch? Jin Waigang announced, Jin Clan Patriarch, to develop and strengthen ties with the Sichuan Dang clan. I hereby announce the betrothal between the two families right here. Are they shocked to announce a match with the Sichuan Dang clan? What could it be that the host plans to remarry? Madam, please mind your words. Are you serious about the scrawny eldest young master? Jin Seon-hak stood beside them, snorting coldly. So Hai smiled calmly, tilting her mouth. She thought to herself, it's successful. Once the host officially declares it, he can't take it back. Jin Waigang pondered, the head elder didn't attend the banquet. When will our family ever unite in purpose? He asked his subordinate, where is the eldest young master? I told you he must be brought to the banquet no matter what. The man replied, yes, sir, I sent people to look, but it seems he's not in the manor, sir. Dangsun whispered beside her, saying the eldest young master still hasn't appeared. It seems that matter has been handled smoothly. We've also posted guards outside the banquet under the pretense of security. There's absolutely no chance he'll appear, sir. Jin Waigang announced the banquet was beginning. As night fell, lanterns illuminated the entire mansion. Jin Waigang asked, the banquet's nearly over and Jin Muryang still hasn't arrived. I confirm. Yes. He stood before all the guests. Jin Waigang bowed to accept blame and sincerely thanked his martial friends for taking their precious time to attend the banquet. On the way home, they'll be personally escorted by masters of the Heavenly Clan, and we've already coordinated with the authorities, so you needn't worry about the nighttime curfew. With that, I wish you all. Suddenly, the next situation left him speechless. Outside, voices rose in commotion. The front is under attack. Quickly defend. How can this be? Someone was booted and flew toward the door. He fell down right in front of the banquet. Myung stepped in and said, outsiders like you, how dare you block my way? Jin Wigang's gaze fixed on the newcomer. Jin Seon-hak also frowned at the unusual appearance of the boy. So-hai hadn't expected Myung to be alive and return. He and the group of disciples behind him carried Dang Yol in. Someone shouted, the eldest young master of the Bailing family has appeared. The banquet erupted into chaos. What is this disturbance? And who is that young master? Do his followers look like disciples of a noble house? Noong So-un exclaimed, I can't believe he'd be so reckless. The eldest young master is truly mad. Myung-hak raised his sword as a signal. Everyone sheathed their blades. The person standing here is indeed the eldest young master of the Cheon clan patriarch. Jin Wigang was surprised. The eldest young master? Who is he? Don't tell me it's that scrawny lad. Jin Seon-hak reminded him, that's Jin Muryong. Big brother, what is he shocked about? Jin Wigang couldn't believe it. Just a few months since I left my post. Has it changed so much in that time? What on earth happened? Myung stepped forward to face him. Jin Wigang requested, eldest young master, explain the reason for this chaos. He replied, I have something to tell you, honored host. He allowed it. He wants to see what mischief you're up to. Speak. Myung thought inwardly that nominally So-hai and he had been engaged to obtain the antidote from her. First, he must annul that relationship. He begged, pleading that the marriage contract be annulled. Everyone was shocked. Annul the engagement. What is the eldest young master saying? Does he refuse the host's decision? So-hai frowned when rejected. Jin Wigang needs a reasonable cause. Explain your reason. He reported that today the Sichuan Dang clan tried to kill my maid Walyong, and they struck right within the Cheon clan patriarch's territory. Moreover, when I stepped in to stop them, they still attacked even after I revealed my identity as the eldest young master. While I was fighting the Sichuan Dang clan's guards, they poisoned my maid. Walyong's life is now in danger. She stood up in a fury because she had touched me and dirtied my clothes. I said it was punishment according to our rules. Must you go this far over a mere serving girl? You deny she's a serving girl. I remember saying she belonged to me. So-hai was left speechless. What you? Jin Wigang thought to himself this was the first he'd heard of it. Reports about the eldest young master's household affairs keep getting missed. He spoke. As head of the family, I understand and respect the Sichuan Dang clan's rules. I also acknowledge that our maid caused the trouble by that insolent action. Furthermore, since our family cannot enforce the distinct rules of the Tang sect on their behalf, we can show leniency for your act of self-defense. Therefore, I will not pursue the matter regarding that maid any further. As you were about to speak, host, he interrupted. Eldest young master, it's regrettable about the maid, but I cannot annul a marriage arranged by two families. For that reason. Hearing Jin Wigang say that, So-hai smiled smugly. He lowered his voice and emphasized, however, did you really draw swords and attack knowing he was the eldest young master of the Cheon clan patriarch? This is a matter that could nullify the betrothal, so consider your answer carefully. So-hai. He inwardly rejoiced at the opportunity. This is it. So-hai replied there was no such thing. It was just a bit of chaos when the eldest young master leapt in to stop the blade meant to execute the maid. A disciple from behind spoke up. What? Not true. Jin-ho stepped forward as a witness. From what I saw, that was clearly an attack aimed at the eldest young master. Ah, where's your evidence? He answered. What? I saw it with my own eyes. So-hai would never admit it, even to death. Aren't you just inventing this to cover for collusion with the eldest young master? If you speak nonsense again, I'll charge you with perjury. Jin-ho faltered. Perjury? That's terrifying. Myung-hak stepped in to continue, fabricating evidence or testimony. He ordered, so you're going to play that card. Bring them in. A group of disguised disciples, knocked unconscious, were dragged in. So-hai covered her face with a fan, hiding her shock. Myung-hak reported, these are the ones who disguised themselves as disciples and deliberately tried to poison the eldest young master. Jin Wigang was stunned and exclaimed, what? Noong So-un continued, they had suspicious vials, so I made them drink. They immediately behaved like complete drunks. It seems they plotted using the eldest young master's reputation to prevent him from attending the banquet. Regarding the conspiracy they mentioned, in the past months he hasn't missed a single day at the martial hall and never let his sword go. Everyone here can testify to that. Especially me. Charge me with perjury if you wish. I'll stake my life to testify. Faced with those sharp arguments, Jin Wigang fell silent. So-hai insisted, then where's the evidence? You're shamelessly taking the bait. Evidence, here it is. Myung-hak reported, according to the medical hall, it seems to be a secret elixir containing a paralytic or numbing poison. Even the medical hall said they couldn't identify the components or formula of that poison. And if any place has the capacity to make such a secret elixir, it can only be the Sichuan Dang clan. Everyone fell silent and murmured. Did the Sichuan Dang clan really poison the eldest young master? The rumors about the Sichuan Dang clan are true. I've heard they're people you shouldn't get involved with. We should annul the engagement right now. He curled his lip in a smile and said, "Oh, how does the scent of evidence taste? So hi, I'll take this chance to declare the engagement null and void." The fan in her hand covered her face completely. She spoke up, "It's so ridiculous I can't help but laugh. They hadn't even used the drug, only carried it on them. How can you conclude they intended to poison the eldest young master? Maybe they meant to drink it themselves, right? Besides, their clothes match the disciples. But disciple uniforms aren't something anyone can just obtain, are they? If that's the case, how could the Sichuan Dang clan, who only arrived today, have gotten them? Logically, shouldn't you suspect a mole inside the Cheon clan patriarch instead of blaming the Sichuan Dang clan? And how is the medical hall of the Cheon clan patriarch's assessment considered evidence? Shouldn't we hear the opinion of the far greater medical hall of the Sichuan Dang clan to see if it's really their poison? That persuasive argument struck Mu Myung dumb. How could he counter so quickly? She pressed, "Do you have anything else?" The two injured disciples spoke up. "That man attacked us. I've a cut across my chest, and he has one in the back." Sohai demanded, "What does one disciple being beaten by a common fighter have to do with an engagement and the martial world? Go investigate such trifles separately. You're disappointing. It's useless. Morale has been crushed." The advantage was swinging to her side. Shin Gang spoke. "Miss Dang's words are entirely correct. The identities of those people will be investigated separately, but the medical hall's assessment cannot be treated as proof because opinion is not fact. Is there any other evidence proving these people belong to the Sichuan Dang clan? If you falsely accuse the Sichuan Dang clan without evidence, you will bear responsibility for that recklessness. And if you slander them to stop this marriage, sabotaging a major union between two families is very serious and will be punished severely. The eldest young master could be expelled or left to the Sichuan Dang clan to deal with as they see fit. I'll ask you one last time, where is the evidence?" He was furious. "It's a disaster. There's no evidence to present now. Even if the truth comes out later through an official investigation, it will be too late to annul the marriage. Moreover, by then Walyong will certainly be, so I must handle this matter right here. Right now. Furthermore, in the unlikely event the truth is buried, they will suffer a punishment harsher than mine." Among that group, he noticed a strange man, Lee Seokgi. How could he be so at ease? The man was saying, "It's urgent, help me." Something slipped out from inside his robe. He looked closely with sharp eyes, and guessed that it might be the uniform of the Sichuan Dang clan. Mu Myung recalled that the man had arrived late at that moment. "Eldest young master, finally found you. You once asked, so Lee Seokgi, you're hiding something, aren't you?" He faltered. "What?" Mu Myung questioned coldly. "I heard as much, otherwise why would the Dang masters suddenly attack you? Because you saw something behind that hill, didn't you?" He played dumb. "Saw what? There's no such thing." Mu Myung warned him. "Is that so? I'll say this first. We're all in this together. If you're planning to betray us, then give it up." He swore, "I, Lee Seokgi, am a senior disciple. If I'm not loyal, let me go mad. So please don't say things like that." The group departed. The signal sounded again. "Hurry up." Mu Myung was annoyed. That bastard Lee Seokgi couldn't stand it and betray us again. "There's no other way. Whatever you saw, you must confess it all." He began, "My lord, I've told the whole truth already. But even if the truth is buried, punishing only me would suffice. I beg you, spare the other disciples. This can't be done. The crime of conspiring to sabotage a marriage is severe. Those 7 disciples will face heavy punishment." Lee Seokgi froze at that. 7 people. He counted again and realized including himself made exactly 7. Lee Seokgi panicked. "Why am I included among them?" He then said to the senior disciple, "Lee Seokgi is the ringleader of this matter and should receive the harshest punishment, right?" Fear gripped him. "Ringleader? Since when did you put me as the head?" Jin Gang replied. "Of course, if found guilty of slander, he'll face the death penalty." Those words crushed his plot like a hand around a throat. Now Lee Seokgi was forced to decide. Damn it, here's the evidence. I kept the garment the Dang master was burning. He planned to deliver this to the Dang family and start a new life as a true disciple of the Sichuan Dang clan. Presenting evidence to annul the engagement would earn some applause, then he'd live on as a failed senior disciple. Hiding the evidence could either doom him for slander or, if the marriage succeeded, he'd return the garment to the Dang family. Things were getting complicated. What to do now? If he didn't present the evidence now, he'd surely be implicated and face execution. Hide the evidence and die for slander, or if the marriage succeeds, return the garment to the Dang family. He declared, "The 7 disciples and I are in this together. Please execute all 8 of us at once." especially the senior disciple Lee Siaki. If he lacks loyalty and goes mad, bury him with me. And since we're about to be executed anyway, inflict the harshest tortures possible so future generations will always remember us. Start with pulling nails, gouging eyes, cutting tongues, opening bellies, and pulling out entrails. So he had no choice but to confess. The evidence is here. Moo Myung grinned smugly when the man finally came forward. That's more like it. Jin Waigang now understood the line of questioning Moo Myung had led earlier. So Highover had a bad feeling. Lee Siaki presented the partially singed garment. When I climbed the hill and looked down, I saw the Dang masters burning this. This garment appeared to belong to those disguised as bandits. When the assassination failed, they tried to burn the evidence. And I happened to see it. Seems they planned to kill me to silence me, but instead injured those two disciples. Because this is a very important matter, I had to check carefully before reporting, so please pardon me. Shall I end my confession here? I'll end my report now. The disciples all turned to him at once. You senior disciple, sorry, I've been overlooking you all this time. Dangson angrily stepped forward and struck out with a palm at one of the disciples. The two of them walked up to Lee Siaki and looked at that deep blue garment. So Hai fumed inwardly. Useless lot, they can't handle a small matter and let it blow up like this. She reasoned, it's true that's the Dang family's garment, but do you have proof it's from those bandits? He interrupted. Planning to slander again? So Hai, from now on you should watch your words or you'll be punished for falsely accusing others. Whispering in your ear, listen closely. The Chen clan patriarch has a specially trained scent hound named Chenro. If we bring Chenro to scent you now, do you think it would pick up the smell on this garment? And if it does, what would that mean? So Hai of course understood. The Dang family's poison hound can even scent a scrap of silk buried 3 feet underground. If it's only body scent left on clothing like this, even a stupid dog would surely find it. He threatened, hand over the antidote now. If you give it up now, I won't release the scent hound and we'll just annul the engagement. But what if our hound exposes your brazen lies? Can you and the Dang family bear that ridicule and shame? Hand over the antidote and get out of Chiat Jiang. She bristled. The antidote? You turn against the Dang family over a mere servant girl. Moo Myung urged, hurry up and hand it over, I'm in a rush. So I clenched her teeth in fury. Elder Dang slammed the table. The marriage agreement has been decided. Why are there other words like this? Killing intent radiated from him into the air. Someone recognized that purple aura. Could it be the death cloud chi? They say only supreme masters who have reached the transcendent realm can emit it. Elder Dang demanded an explanation. Why would the Chen clan patriarch be so disrespectful to an important guest? Is this a courtroom? Is the young lady a criminal now? How rude. Until now, no one has ever dared be rude to our family, because those who did before ended up all dead. Chen Xian Hak's presence was no less imposing. Elder Dang, watch your words, someone murmured. Over here they also have Death Cloud Chi. He warned, Death Chi meeting Death Chi, first time seeing such a sight in my life. If you keep spouting nonsense like this, you'll soon understand why the heavenly dragon can shake the entire martial world. He moved to draw his sword. What? The two of them faced off. Elder Dang's followers rose and prepared to draw their swords in unison. The Tianchi side also went on guard. The two camps fell into a stalemate while the guests upstairs murmured. What on earth is happening? Fighting at an engagement banquet. Has the Dang family gone mad? Jin Waigang watched everything unfold silently. He spoke, Elder Dang, please calm yourself. How can an engagement be annulled at one side's whim? Unless one party commits a serious fault, it cannot be annulled. He replied slyly from the side. Strange talk, sounds like the Chen clan patriarch really wants to annul the engagement, doesn't it? Jin Waigang smiled coldly. If it sounds like that, then I apologize. It's just. A multicolored light burst forth, leaving everyone stunned. The 7-hued light spread up to the ceiling. The items on Chen Waigang's table were sliced apart. From behind him, spear-shaped forms materialized, prompting gasps from all. Is this the famed 5-colored celestial scarlet sword? The 5-colored sword displayed by the host at transcendent level. Everything has its limits. His voice carried authority. Don't test this host's patience any further. Chen Wigang stood in the middle of the hall, his presence utterly overwhelming, making the entire room fall silent under the terrifying pressure. He coldly ordered the investigation to begin immediately, starting with the very garments of the Tang clan that the disciples had just seized. A trembling disciple presented a piece of black fabric from the Duong sect, irrefutable evidence before everyone. Those implicated were promptly bound tight and taken away for separate interrogation. with no chance to conspire. The disciple broke out in sweat, his face drained of blood as he was cornered into a desperate position. The great patriarch wanted to cross-check every testimony to peel the truth away from the mountain of lies piled up over the years. While awaiting the investigation results, he officially announced the wedding would be postponed. Cheon grit his teeth in frustration. She felt the Tang clan was being humiliated right out in the open. How embarrassing, really. In her heart, she thought the Tang clan could easily sweep this place clean, but the reality before her eyes was far from that simple. The people following her could only stand frozen, taking it like champs before the overwhelming power of the Cheon clan patriarch. Faced with a martial master of this caliber, any will to resist seemed utterly meaningless. Indeed, even the thought of rebelling felt like committing a grave crime. Seeing Chen Wigang's authority, the fighting spirit of Sohai's followers evaporated completely. She stood dazed, wondering why something that had been progressing so smoothly had ended up like this. A golden opportunity for the Tang clan to advance into the Central Plains was ruined. She swore to avenge this humiliation 10,000-fold. But switching faces in a flash, she recovered a coquettish look and taunted whether the Cheon clan could still be called a martial family. Chen Wigang calmly affirmed that of course they were, no question about it. So she proposed to settle it the martial way, with a match to decide everything. She turned to invite the young master to duel, but Mu Myung only wanted the antidote and to politely show her the door. Sohai casually produced a tiny vial of antidote as bait right in front of him. If Mu Myung won, this vial would be the bonus gift for him to save someone. If he refused, she threatened that her followers' lives would end tonight and both houses would be soaked in blood. She cornered Mu Myung into accepting the duel if he didn't want to cause a massacre. Feigning weakness as a woman, she sent out her giant bodyguard to fight on her behalf. Chen Wigang hesitated a little. He didn't want to be led into a pointless match just to settle a marriage. At that moment, Mu Myung coolly called Sohai's name directly, cutting through the silence. He told her to keep her promise, then asked the great patriarch for permission to take the field himself. The entire hall fell silent at the sudden decision of the young master, who had been considered useless. Chen Wigang jumped, unable to believe his child dared to challenge that fierce bodyguard. But Chen Xianhak told him to stay calm and watch what Mu Myung could do. In the father's mind, Mu Myung was still just a lazy, weak, irresponsible child. He believed that odd character was the reason the boy had no friends or loyal followers. Entrusting responsibility to him, in his view, was utterly absurd. The disciples around also looked at Mu Myung with worry and not a shred of confidence. Chen Wigang pondered for a moment, looking deep into his grandson's eyes as if weighing his decision. Finally, he spoke, officially allowing Mu Myung to represent the family in the fight. The two stared at each other like sparks flying, the tense atmosphere enveloping the whole hall. Mu Myung nonchalantly told her to slide the pile of tables and chairs aside to make room for the duel. Jin Xianhak chuckled with delight, saying these two really were a perfect pair. The old man kept teasing and joking, while the great patriarch remained silent, observing. Sohai turned to instruct Dangson to give his all to take down the opponent. Her eyes were sharp, clearly intending to see Mu Myung pay dearly on the arena floor. Sohai curled her lip and added pointedly that accidental injuries during a match were common enough. She bluntly declared that even if her future husband were accidentally crippled, her loyalty would remain unchanged. The match was quickly prepared right in the main hall under everyone's witness. The Tang clan's bodyguard stepped forward with a sullen expression. Mu Myung stood opposite, relaxed in posture, but his eyes already intensely focused on the opponent. A shout rang out signaling the official start of the duel. Mu Myung quickly drew his sword, his defensive stance steady and ready to meet the challenge. Dangson was no pushover either. He swung a massive greatsword, creating an enormous invisible pressure. He rushed in like a beast, aiming to finish Mu Myung off in the opening moves. Mu Myung calmly brushed aside the opponent's blade. Myung poured power into his sword, launching powerful slashes to crush the foe's resistance, but the man lightly sidestepped. With each movement, Myung seemed to have been predicted by him. Myung gritted his teeth, enduring the tremendous pressure from the greatsword pressing down on his blade. But then his gaze suddenly turned icy. A cold cut of his blade flashed through. He landed lightly and immediately regained his balance, keeping a safe distance that took Dangson by surprise. But the man had already parried his blade. Then Dangson poured his strength into his sword. Immediately his eyes went cold as he swung at Myung. Myung struggled to defend. Then Myung suddenly used an extremely fast movement technique, vanishing from his opponent's sight in an instant, leaving Dangson only able to stare bewildered at the flash of a shadow. Myung reappeared at a different angle, the sword in his hand beginning to emit a strange glow. He gathered his aura and prepared to unleash his school's ultimate technique. The crowd started whispering in awe as a blazing pink chi enveloped Muryang's blade. That was sword chi, a realm even veteran masters find hard to reach. People were stunned, unable to believe the useless young master could perform such a supreme technique. Myung stood there with towering arrogance, coldly declaring he had seen through his opponent's entire martial art. He sneered, saying the man's so-called pinnacle of martial arts turned out to be no more than that. As Myung stepped into position, his body began showing signs of fatigue. Dangson also wrapped the great blade in a purple aura of energy, murderous intent radiating off it. Myung coldly signaled for his opponent to rush in. A decisive stomp on the red carpet. Myung's steps flashed forward at incredible speed, leaving streaks of white wind. The two charged at each other like twin lightning bolts in the Cheon clan's great hall. Dangson swung his blade with tremendous force, the purple sword energy sweeping threateningly through the air. Myung leaned aside to narrowly avoid it. The clash of blade and sword threw off blinding sparks of electricity. He immediately realized this was a top-tier master, someone who truly knew how to control sword chi. "He's stronger than me," Myung silently judged as his opponent passed like a shadow. The slashing attacks screamed continuously. The pressure from the bluish-white aura forced Muryang to concentrate intensely to defend. The guard looked very pleased with himself, confident he could dictate the pace of this duel. The confrontation grew fierce, bursts of force from both sides scattering everywhere. Myung took a hit, sweat began to beat on his face as he braced himself to endure. The guard followed up with a high kick, pressing Myung into a passive stance. But Muryang remained very calm. He stepped back a pace to study his enemy's intent more closely. Dangson lunged again, this time with a direct, powerful strike. The blade and sword clashed again with a metallic ring. The force of the great blade pushed Myung back. Myung realized his opponent was aiming for his arm. "You want my arm?" The thought flashed through his mind as he watched the purple energy surge. He suddenly lowered his center of gravity, the tip of his sword dragging along the ground into an odd stance. "Then go ahead and come try to chop it off," he silently did. Myung swung a wide stroke, deliberately exposing a deadly opening at his shoulder. Dangson paused for a beat, watching what he thought was a foolish mistake of his opponent. He triumphantly launched an attack, assuming Myung would repeat the same old trick as before. "You're not only weak but stupid too," he sneered, pouring all his strength into the finishing slash. The man cackled, convinced that victory was already securely in his hands. He swore he'd cut off both Myung's arm and his sword in a single stroke. From afar, Chun Wigang and Chun Seon-hak watched the match silently with knowing expressions. Chun Seon-hak understood that what the enemy saw was only part of the truth, based on old prejudices about Myung. Arrogance was blinding the guard, preventing him from seeing the danger closing in. He was fighting a trash from his memory, not the Myung who was fully alert before him. The clash of blades sent out a blinding flash of light, signaling the decisive moment of the duel. Chun Seon-hak watched anxiously, his old hands clenching as the battle reached its peak. The guard's smile suddenly froze when he realized Myung's sword had changed. In his eyes, a cold energy flared brightly, marking the rise of a different power. The guard's strike missed, and Myung's body flashed past him like a ghost. Myung's eyes suddenly flared a demonic red, murderous intent exploding in the confined space. Dangson the guard realized in horror that he'd fallen into the perfect trap Myung had set. An extremely fast sword stroke tore through the purple aura, aimed straight at the opponent's fatal. Myung finished it with a brutal move, his blazing red eyes cold and majestic. Chun Wigang was also stunned by his son's sudden burst of power and exquisite technique. The guard's arm fell off like that. The guard screamed in pain as he was defeated by the very person he had always looked down on. Chun Seon-hak proclaimed the outcome in a sonorous voice, praising Myung for executing an almost perfect move. Myung stood there, calmly sheathing his sword while his opponent lay dazed on the floor. So-hai was shocked, unable to believe her eyes, the fan in her hand trembling. She gaped in astonishment, unable to understand how a waste could defeat her top guard. Myung held out his hand, a silent but weighty demand for quiet. He reminded her to keep her promise and hand over the antidote immediately. So-hai gritted her teeth in rage, deeply humiliated at having to lose before so many people. She threw the blue antidote vial toward Myung, an action that showed her fury to the utmost. "Take that pride." Myung caught the vial, but his body began to show signs of trouble after having pushed himself too far. His steps wavered, his vision starting to blur as the adrenaline faded. He realized the internal energy in his body was showing signs of a severe backlash. Forcing himself to resist the opponent's sword chi had severely damaged his meridians, and his vital energy began to run backwards. Blood started trickling from his nose. Myung tried to hold on to consciousness, but everything around him was darkening. His vision narrowed to a hazy red, the floor seeming to tilt and sway. Myung collapsed onto the red carpet, the precious antidote vial rolling out of his hand. In a delirium, he only managed a single desperate cry as he failed to protect the prize. His final thought was of Waliang, who was anxiously waiting for this life-saving dose.